Euron.
The Silence ship battle is one of the ones that is a very elaborate scene to shoot. It was so well conceived by Mark. The whole thing was very wisely centered around Pilu's performance, Gemma's performance, and Alfie's performance.
I tried to stay with individuals within the chaos of the boat battle, and then it was the decision as to who we follow. Initially, it was all about Gemma's character, Yara, but in shooting it, Pilu's Euron was such fun. Pilu is such an incredibly charismatic, he's such a great kind of heir apparent to Ramsay, as such a great baddie for this season, and so fantastically physical.
Euron, it was just like analyzing how many people do I have to kill, and what do I have to do now? But the first hit, and blood just came like, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I don't know if I can say fucking, but that was a fucking awesome week.
Here we go. Set. And 3, 2, 1, action!
Acting alongside Pilu is such a joy because we have a great respect for how tricky it all is in terms of the physicality, and he's so respectful of anything that will or won't hurt, but I'm also very game for him to go for it, so it's convincing. So between us, we work very well together and we communicate very clearly with one another before we're doing things, what we're doing and how we're doing it, and that's how we've managed to stay safe.
Silence is supposed to be a very different kind of boat.
It's the mothership, it's his command ship, and it's supposed to intimidate people when they see it, and it's supposed to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies.
The boat itself is a projection of the personality of the man who built it. It's a big fuck you boat built by a big fuck you guy.
My ship's like 5 times bigger than their little tiny boat. You know, it was like their boat was this big and mine was this big. And I don't think it has nothing to do with, you know what they say about guys with big cars. They like speed, and so do I.
The boat itself doesn't really come into play as a real thing that people need to interact with until it's connected to Yara's ship. And so we decided that the best way to really put across the true size of this boat was to build a section of it, the bow section that rams into Yara's boat.
We designed a big naval ram that was on the front of that boat that would then crash into Yara's. And that was an opportunity to then reintroduce the Kraken. And obviously also we had the Corvus itself that could also, be this very aggressive thing that then latches onto her ship.
The Corvus is that long walkway that descends and smashes onto Yara's ship, and they often would be built with these kind of claws on the bottom so that when they hit the deck of the enemy ship, they would stay there.
We built the Corvus so that it became lightweight and very strong. The trouble we had was the fact that we had a stuntman standing on the end, which meant that we had to control it with a winch system. But the winch system is obviously a controlled fall, so we ended up managing to double the speed in the end, which made it more dramatic.
Fire is one of the hardest things for VFX to replicate, and so they'd always rather have real fire on set. Even now, with all the advances in visual effects technology, real fire just looks better.
We created ember guns. We had a couple of moments where like a projectile would go crashing through a mast, and the whole sort of section of the mast would come collapsing down. So we had big drop rigs up in the rigging. During the battle, they fired the burning projectiles at the Yara's crew. Our effect there is really flares fired down wires.
Action.
One of the major challenges in the boat sequence was how to, sell the idea that this was happening at sea, that they were floating on water, and yet we're in a car park in Northern Ireland.
The visual effects process and bringing a scene to life that doesn't really exist in a real practical world takes a lot of creativity and imagination.
The most challenging aspect of the sea battle is the number of shots. It's a very quick cut scene, and it's about the pacing, and it's fast. I mean, it's like a machine gun. We had green screens 60 feet high, all the way around the ship. So there isn't really a direction that the camera can face that we don't have to do something.
The boat at Banbridge is quite restrictive. You know, we had 40 stunt guys on there, 6 cast members and the crew. So that was quite a challenge, you know, and it was very wet and it was very cold.
The set itself became almost comically crowded with everybody doing this dance. We agreed that the violence should be brutal and feel unchoreographed, that it shouldn't feel structured.
I wanted it to feel like the violence of a riot or football terraces, when there's a flash of, you know, violence, and it just kicks off.
In a lot of fight choreography, it's challenging to achieve that if you're trying to do a specific fight beats, and also long takes by their nature make people exhausted. So one of the things that we did to achieve that was no take was more than 10 seconds long. So all we were asking the cast and the stunts to do was to go nuts for 10 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Hugely challenging for everybody. Difficulties of filming on a wooden boat in the rain because it gets so slippy. Chicken wire was stapled to the floor to stop us from slipping over, and, like, you know, there's so much going on out of shot.
Is everyone okay?
It was just insane because there's so many people. You know, like, I mean, it's very different when you're practicing like one-on-one with a stunt double or with like another actor the day before in a stunt tent, to when you like get there on the day and they're like, oh, by the way, we didn't mention like you can't stand here because this is on fire, and like we're gonna flood the boat, and like don't slip over, and you're on a deck. You're like, oh, okay. So it's like a lot of things to consider.
The key moment, I suppose, for me at least, in the sequence is Yara coming up onto the poop deck area, and really that moment of looking out over the stern of her ship and seeing the enormity of the attack, and knowing that all is lost, really, and that the only thing to do is to, you know, fight to the last, like a good Iron Islander.
When Yara gets taken by Euron on the boat and it has the axe to her throat, initially she feels like Theon's back, it's okay, he'll do something, he'll do the right thing, and then the change that happens in his eyes, she realizes that he's not going to stay. I think she's heartbroken at that point.
And it really all comes down to close-ups on 3 people and where they're at the end of this experience. We'd maybe fooled ourselves into thinking that Theon was out of the woods on his whole Reek experience, and as we were writing it, we realized that you don't just get over what happened to him. That's something that's going to be a part of him for the rest of his life. And this is a place that triggers the worst of that experience as he sees people around him doing the kinds of things that Ramsay used to do to him, and to see Euron's pure psycho glee about the whole thing. And when Theon jumps overboard, that laugh that's the character's encapsulation, is that shot. That, you know, that's why this is somebody you should be worried about.